Good morning, kids. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Prog Magic about giving more Pokemon new evolutions. Let's hop in and see what Brandon came up with today.
Hey everyone, Brandon here. Regional evolutions and straight up new evolutions have started popping up in the past couple generations. So naturally, when I started creating my own Pokemon region, Devar, I wanted to make a bunch of my own. One aspect we have seen in Gen 8 is Pokemon getting new split evolutions through regional forms such as with Berserker, Runerigus, and Sneasler, as well as an outright new split evolution with Kleavor. Given Devar is based on India, Nepal, and parts of the surrounding area, it would make sense for a Pokemon that already had a major basis in India, and by proxy Hinduism, to get a new split evolution. That Pokemon would be none other than Meditite. Along with its evolution Medicham, these Pokemon are based on yoga and Hindu deities like Shiva and Ardhanari. Personally, I've always had a fondness for this line, so I wanted to show it some more love in this region. As you may well know, Medicham's gimmick is its main ability, Pure Power, which doubles its attack stat. So how about we make a counterpart that is more of a special attacker? Then you would get something like Meditite's new split evolution, Meditama, the Liberation Pokemon, a psychic fighting type that I worked with the amazing Antarctic Stray to create. Though the switch in primary type doesn't really do anything mechanically, it is more symbolic of the switch in focus for this Pokemon, putting the brain over the brawn in this instance. Meditama's name comes from meditate, obviously, and Siddhartha Gautam, better known as Lord Buddha. I felt it would be a great fit to have this evolution.
Okay, so yeah, the other part of its name is based on Buddha. Got it.
Reference the Buddha, given the Indian subcontinent is the birthplace of Buddhism, and Meditite's meditating nature, with the Buddha probably being one of the most famous meditators worldwide, and meditation being intrinsic to Buddhism as a whole. This evolution retains Meditite's color scheme, rather than turning red like Medicham. Lord Buddha being depicted as having blue skin is not unheard of, though it is usually depicted using gold, which would be referenced in the shiny of Meditama. This also forms a cool little color triangle of shinies between the three members of this line. As far as its stats, Medicham's attack and special attack stat are the exact same, so we wouldn't even really need to change the stat distribution, though we will a tiny bit. We will switch the speed and HP stats, as Meditama is not really going much of anywhere, unlike its bouncy, dancing counterpart Medicham. But now we've come to the Dawn fan in the room. How exactly will Meditama match Medicham's ability? For that, we have the new ability, Mindful, doubling the Pokemon's special attack stat. The name is a bit of a double entendre, being like mindful, which meditation is all about mindfulness, but also that its mind is full of knowledge and understanding. Meditite evolves into Meditama if leveled up to level 37 while holding the new item, the Focus Beads, which my buddy Maumistex helped bring to life. The Focus Beads not only help evolve Meditite, but also have a secondary use, boosting the power of Psychic-type attacking moves if used consecutively. Kind of like the Metronome item, but you can use it with a variety of Psychic-type moves, instead of the same one every time. The item itself and its ability are a reference to Buddhist Mala beads, which are used in meditation, usually alongside some kind of...
You know, anytime I always thought of beads in religion, I always thought of the rosary that some Christianity religions have.
Repeated mantra to assist in concentration. Meditama are in a constant state of meditation. Even fainting does not break its concentration. Many monks throughout Devar aspire to be able to reach the level of focus a Meditama has. Another new split evolution comes in the form of an evolution to Barboach. Whiscash is a bit of a secondary mascot on this channel and even has its own emote Whizcash, so I made this one as a tribute to my mods.
Love it.
With that said, here is Barboach, the Devilfish Pokemon, a water dark type.
Wait, what?
Here is Barboach, the Devilfish Pokemon.
The Devilfish Pokemon. Care to explain?
Water dark type, who I worked with the amazing Chartius arts to bring to life. There exists a certain kind of catfish that can be found in India named the Goonch catfish, also known as the giant's devil catfish. And this catfish certainly earns that title, being absolutely enormous, and with one having been rumored to have fatally wounded multiple people and even eaten small children who dared to swim in the murky rivers it resides in. Barboach follows this dark origin in its typing, but also in its behavior, aggressively attacking any that enter its territory. It evolves from Barboach at level 30 while in or near the waters of Patsanata Falls found in southwest Devar, referencing how the Goonch attacks were noted around the Kali River in Karnataka, which this area is meant to reference with its numerous waterfalls.
Our entire...
Hold on, folks. We'll be right back. And we're back.
The regional evolution we have actually already introduced is Davarian Halucha and Haruda respectively, based on the
I
Hindu
remember
deity
them.
Garuda, which you can learn more about in this video here. But there
Yep.
was also a couple
Oh,
Davarian forms and a new
just there.
evolution that I actually introduced in a video before this series had even started. What am I talking about? Well, last year I made a video in which I gave the rest of the Route 1 rodents their own
yes.
dark normal regional forms paired with brand new third stage evolutions. A keen-eyed viewer might have noticed for the Centret line, who I worked with Kaifek Manasar to create, that a lot of inspirations I used came from India. This was yet another hint towards Devar, just like how I did with Scrap Up and a Mongrel. To explain a bit more about this line, Centret and for its coloration is inspired by the Nilgiri marten, which is found in southern
I
India
like
in the hills of the Nilgiri Mountains, for which it is named. The little mask-like pattern of this animal fits well onto this line and their dark normal typing, and it also refers to anti-heroes, characters who do heroic things but not so much in a traditional heroic way, such as Red
Yeah.
Hood and Deadpool, which this line's red shiny forms make reference to, as well as lining up with the shiny forms of Alolan Rattata and Galarian Zigzagoon. Centret and Furret became this way in Devar to avoid predation, as some Pokemon in Devar were crafty enough to outmaneuver their typical defense mechanisms, so they adapted to become nocturnal, adopting a darker coloration and typing to make it easier to sneak around
And
at
evil.
night. Centret retain their lookout nature, taking shifts during the day to make sure that their friends can sleep, and Furret and Devar are even more elusive than their Jotonian counterparts, but can
Ooh.
intimidate foes with a nasty
Very
snarl if
sneaky.
necessary. At level 35, Davarian Furret evolves into Sorit, the long-tail Pokemon, a dark flying type. I always thought it a bit strange that Furret completely abandons the flying squirrel inspiration of Centret, so this Pokemon is the best of both worlds, while
brings it
mixing in
back.
elements of both the Indian giant squirrel and the Indian giant flying squirrel.
God,
With
that's
this
massive.
evolution, the sort of anti-hero motif
Oh, no, that thing was massive. You could use that like a kite.
has turned more into just a darker hero. Like the Dark Knight himself, Batman. Sorit are masters of the air at night, able to land and take off in seconds. They will glide over
Ooh.
cityscapes, exclusively targeting and taking down Pokemon that bully others.
Really
Moving on
fast,
from an
then.
older generation Pokemon to a Pokemon from the newest generation, Cloth. This dude took the internet by storm when it was initially introduced and definitely captured my heart. Cloth is based on a few different kinds of crabs,
Kinda
along
sucks
with a
it
bit of
doesn't
rock
evolve.
climbing. But it is also one of many puns in the form of a Pokemon, most likely being based on rock crabs, as in a literal rock crab. So being the pun enjoyer that I am, I wanted to maintain that aspect of Cloth. So before I explain more, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Davarian Cloth, a pure grass type, who I also
Yeah,
worked
okay.
with the Enards to Stray to create. Rather than a rock crab, this version of Cloth is a tree crab, literally, changing its little hairy elbows into little bushes, taking it from the
Okay,
ambush
not
Pokemon
bad.
to the ambush Pokemon. With the abundance of trees in Devar,
Level.
it became more advantageous for Cloth to blend in with said trees rather than the cliff faces like in Paldea, though it will strike in the same manner as Paldean Cloth, masking itself amongst the foliage of the trees, easily able to land on top of prey passing by. But this video is about evolutions, so of course, in Devar, Cloth evolves into Clarber, the mangrove Pokemon, a
Okay, now before we continue on with this, I like this.
grass water type. Upon this evolution, the pun of this Pokemon has evolved as well, now being a literal mangrove tree crab. Though the actual mangrove tree crabs are native to the Americas,
Oh, look at that.
mangrove crabs can be found all over Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean. On top of that, India and
He's
Bangladesh
just got a big old bushy beard.
are home to the Sundarbans and the Sundarban Reserve Forest, the largest mangrove forest in the world, which is referenced with Clarber and the mangrove forests west of Vizaqua and Kalhiti, where Davarian Cloth and Clarber can be found. Design-wise, Clarber obviously has its pun origins, but with its bushy beard and eyebrows, it also makes reference to the Great Deku Tree, a recurring character in the Legend of Zelda franchise.
Yep, there
and
it
yet
is.
another small reference to Zelda would come in the way that Clarber would appear in the overworld, with it looking like a normal mangrove tree until it drudges itself out of the mud to come and attack you, just like the Evermeans from Tears of the Kingdom, or for
Ooh.
more of a Pokemon-related comparison, like Griefard and Houndstone in Paldea. And there is yet another Paldea Pokemon that receives a brand new evolution in Devar, Spidops. This Pokemon is
Okay.
pretty polarizing, with its fans absolutely loving it and its haters hating it. This Pokemon definitely grew on me, and with it having a measly 404 base stat total and big middle stage
404.
energy, I knew I wanted to give this dude an evolution. So after leveling up to level 34 while knowing the new bug type move False Retreat, Spidops would evolve into Arakakara, the tactic Pokemon, a
Ooh.
pure bug type, which I also worked with Kaifek
Love
Manasar
that.
to create. This Pokemon ties together elements of Spidops and Tarantula, bringing the line full circle, but its name as well as its design come from the Panch Kakar, also known as the 5Ks of Khalsa Seeks. The Kara, which is also incorporated into its name, is an iron band, which is displayed as the webbed bands around a Rakakara's arms and shoulders, the Kesh, which is seen in this Pokemon's beard, the Kanga, which is not exactly seen in this design as it is usually covered by a turban or dastar, but the wrap around this Pokemon's head refers to it, the Kachira, which is reflected in the sort of clothing around a Rakakara's waistline, and finally the Kirpin, which this Pokemon's arms are shaped like. The pose also evokes one of the symbols of the Seeks, the Kanda. I felt Khalsa Seeks would be great to reference with an evolution of Spidops, as they were a smaller militaristic group that was frequently outmanned, so they had to use more strategic methods to take down the enemy. Just like Spidops, who references Special Ops Forces, who also use different and more strategic methods to take out their target. The main strategy of Khalsa Seeks was called Daipot, or 2.5 strikes, in which they would attack, pretend to retreat, then attack again to confuse the enemy, which is referenced in that false retreat move I mentioned earlier. When using said move, a Rakakara retreats to your party, in which you can swap into another Pokemon for one turn. But then the following turn, a Rakakara will swap back in automatically and hit the Pokemon with a priority base 70 attacking move that guarantees to confuse the target. The move would not be shown, so your opponent won't know if this is actually a hard swap or just false retreat, leaving room for a bit of swap prediction. It essentially gives you a form of a meat shield for a turn, which is great given it is pure bug type, often considered one of the weaker types. Speaking of, this evolution would make the Tarantula line the first 3-stage line that is pure bug type, which is why I didn't give it a secondary typing. If it was going to gain a new typing, it probably would have been with Spidops, who learns a good amount of moves outside its typing. Arachnophobia warning here, but Arakakara is inspired by the decorative Silver Orb Weaver, which does a similar thing with its legs to the Ogre Spider from which Spidops is inspired, and it shares the coloration with this line. Oh, and one final fact is Arakakara joins Eevee, Ho-Oh, Alomomola, and the Girafarig line in the Palindrome Name Club.
Ooh, that's a little loud. Hold on, folks, we'll be right back. And we're back.
Going back 2 generations, we have an evolution for what I feel is an often overlooked Pokemon, Drampa. This Pokemon is actually so cool and is wholesome as heck. If you watch the Sun and Moon anime, you will know what I mean, with it embodying the grandparents it is named after, protecting and playing with children. It can also be very destructive if angered, which plays into its dragon side. Well, in Devar, Drampa's love of children and destructive nature grows even stronger, when at level 45, after following you for 1,000 steps, it evolves into Dramparade, the float Pokemon, a normal dragon type, which I worked with the incredible Deems Fakemon to create. This Pokemon's inspiration comes from the Meitei people found in the Manipur region of northeast India. During the religious festival of Lai Haroba, a special racing boat called the Hyang Huren is used in a ceremony called Hyang Tanaba. This boat race is believed to ward off evil spirits, as the boats are imbued with spiritual powers. You can see here there's a Hyang Huren being featured in the Republic Day Parade, which is partly what inspired this concept. Parade floats are seen all over the world. And you know who loves being at and taking part in parades?
Children!
Kids. So Dramparade represents that, letting kids and parents alike ride on its back around villages, making them feel special, and in fact, imbuing them with protection against ghost-type Pokemon. The shape of this Pokemon is also reminiscent of the dragon-headed longships of the Vikings, and another well-known grandpa figure fused with a boat, the King of Red Lions from The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. And of course, if we're giving Drampa an evolution, we have to give its game-exclusive counterpart, Turtonator, an evolution as well. So at level 45, after defeating 3 Turtonator that are holding the new Mortar Scale item, which Mamastex also did the art for, Turtonator evolves into Tortank, the ballistic turtle.
So you gave it kind of the King Gambit treatment.
Pokemon, a fire dragon type, which I also worked with Deems to create. Tortank takes the blasting nature of Turtonator and turns it up to 11, being partly inspired by tanks or war bunkers, with its long nose looking like turrets. Tortank's long snout is also inspired by the soft-shell spiny turtle, and it is also clearly reminiscent of the Indian star tortoise, which you can see the bottom of Tortank's shell is shaped like a star. But the Indian inspiration doesn't stop there. This Pokemon is inspired by a festival by the name of Agni Kelly, otherwise known as the Firefight, in which hundreds of people light pieces of palm branches or fronds on fire and throw them at each other. Don't worry, as to prevent themselves from getting serious burns, there are devotees on site to help with any medical care needed, and the
Oh, thank
participants
God.
only wear these orange clothes called lungi to reduce the chance of catching on fire. The little fiery tips of Tortank's shell reference the burning palm fronds, and the orange coloration on
Close.
the shins reference the lungi. Tortank's snout is used to fire off a cavalcade of devastating incendiary blasts, while its explosive shell guards it from oncoming attacks. Also, Dramparade and Tortank tie their pre-evolutions together even further by mutually having a theme of festivals. And those are some regional evolutions of the Devar region. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.
Well, I have to say, that was kind of interesting. A little strange, but still kind of interesting. Well, folks, that's going to be the end of today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link will be in the description below, and I'll see all you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.